now fully receptive to the message that we're going to speak.
现在大家就能够完全的接受我们接下来要讲述的题旨。
We're going to begin by joining Srila Prabhupada in chanting Jaya Radha Madhava.
我们先来和Srila Prabhupada一起唱诵 Jaya Radha Madhava。
Then we're going to proceed with Lesson 7, Finding Our Mission in His Mission.
之后我们会继续讲，在他的使命中找到我们的使命。
Remember, we left yesterday with discussing Varnashram and the problem of its implementation in Kali Yuga.
昨天我们讲到的是 Varnashram 体系，以及在卡利年代所适合的 Varnashram 体系。
And that most people are not really suited towards living on the land.
大部分人并不适合在土地上工作。
So, for those of us who may not be inclined, we have to find our mission in His mission.
那没有这种才能或者天分去在田地里工作的人，我们得在Srila Prabhupada的使命中找到我们的使命，我们的角色。
We start? So let's join Prabhupada chanting Jai Radha Madhava.
我们和Srila Prabhupada
Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Vihari. Yashodanandana Braja Janarangana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Srila Prabhupada ki. How much longer? No. Huh? Huh? Soon. That means it's strong and will last long.
然后呢，肯定是会很持久。
Huh? What? Can't hear that either. Are you? Huh? What? Will it be minutes or longer? Huh?
还得几分钟。
Huh? Not sure. Uh-huh. What to do? What to do? Hmm? Not sure what to do. I think we'll proceed. We will proceed.
我们还是继续。
The way I see it, it's not gonna be just 10 minutes more because we're just reading the whole.
Then we'll just keep. Then we'll just go on. We'll just go on. I'll just speak loudly. We're going to proceed now.
我们继续。
So you're going to have to listen attentively. I'll try to speak loudly
我也尽量大声，所以希望大家能够全神贯注。
because you're not exactly sure how long this is going to take.
你们不知道到底得多久才能结束。
So the first thing that we have to understand
首先要理解的是，
to understand our mission and his mission is to understand our duty.
要理解我们在他的使命当中找到我们的使命，我们就意味着找到我们的责任。
And it's interesting in Bhagavad Gita, there are two pairs of verses, each pair starting with the exact same Sanskrit line.
有意思的是，在《国家梵歌》当中有两个诗节，这两个诗节有雷同之处，它们的第一句都是梵文的诗节都是一样的。
The first two we're going to discuss actually speak about duty.
第一个诗节它讲的就是职责，
And the second pair discusses the importance of thinking of Krishna.
第二个诗节讲的是怎样在履行职责的时候想着 Krishna。
Now, this is quite interesting because it would seem that the two things are very closely related with one another and even considered equal.
这两个想着 Krishna 和履行职责，它是相互关联的，而且是同等重要的。
Because duty is the practical way in which we express our love for Krishna.
因为履行职责是一种实际的，我们表达对 Krishna 爱的方式。
In one place, Prabhupada actually translates devotional service as the perfection of duty.
也在释迦牟尼在一个地方翻译奉爱服务这个词的时候，他翻译成是履行职责的完美境界。
So first, Bhagavad Gita 3:35. Perhaps you can all read that together.
第一个事件我们一起读一下第3章35诗节。
Bola. And then, very similar, we have 1847.
《教纲科》18章47节和第3章35节相似。
Bolo. So the importance of finding one's duty and the importance of actually practicing it.
这里强调了找到自己的职责的重要性，以及履行自己职责的重要性。
Then we have Krishna telling us about the importance of remembering him.
接下来这个诗节，Krishna谈到了想着他的重要性。
934.
《教纲科》第9章34节。
Bolo, 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 bolo. And very similar, 1865.
18章的65诗节也是同样的意思。
So what we learn here by comparing these two sets of verses is that to actually remember Krishna, we have to be very clearly engaged in our specific duty.
从这两对诗节的对比中，我们就可以看到，为了实际的想着 Krishna、记忆 Krishna， 我们就得实实在在在执行自己的职责。
Because we're all inclined towards doing something.
因为每个人都有做某种活动的一个特定的倾向。
Yesterday we discussed Varnashram.
昨天我们谈到了 Maharaja
And it spoke about the fact that everyone is having a particular propensity.
Maharaja 就基于这样一个事实，每一个人都有特定的品质和从事某种活动的倾向。
Someone is inclined towards Brahminical work, others towards Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra.
有的人倾向于做婆罗门的工作，有的人倾向于做管理或武士阶层的工作 ，Kshatriya 有的适合于经商，Vaishya 有的适合做手工劳动，就是 Sudra。
So one has to really understand one's nature.
所以每个人都得理解自己的本性。
And then properly engage it in the service of Krishna.
然后恰当的处在对 Krishna 的服务中。
Now, we can ask the question,
我们可以问一个问题
why is it so difficult in Kali Yuga to know what our duty is?
为什么在卡利年代要了解我们是谁，我们的职责是什么，会如此困难？
We're going to let Srila Prabhupada answer that question for us.
我们看施拉巴帕的是怎么回答的？
Varnashram dharma. If the Varnashram dharma is not properly protected, then there will be population who are called Varnashram, mixed population.
So this is really the problem in Kali Yuga.
这是卡利年代面临的真正的问题。
That for lack of proper knowledge and proper guidance, we're all mixed.
因为缺乏知识、缺乏恰当的引导，所以处在一片混乱中。
This is the result of a lack of knowledge.
这是缺乏知识的结果。
And therefore the offspring that's produced us
所以就产生了像我们这样的后代，
tend to be mixed up.
所以就是叫做混杂的人口。
So that makes it even more difficult to understand what our duty is.
这使得理解自己的职责变得更加困难了。
And if we think it's difficult now,
如果我们觉得现在都很难的话，
as the Kali Yuga progresses,
想想看，随着卡利年代向前推进，
well, it just gets worse and worse.
只会越来越糟糕。
We find in many places, but particularly the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, gives a very, very elaborate description of what actually happens to people as Kali Yuga progresses.
经典当中很多地方，尤其是圣典国家法坛12篇，详细的描述了随着卡利年代的推进，这个社会、这个世界会变成什么样子。
As a result of sinful activities,
因为人们在从事罪恶活动，
which are performed out of ignorance,
罪恶活动是因为愚昧才做出来的。
if you don't know what to do and what not to do,
因为人们不知道什么该做，什么不该做，
you'll probably always do the wrong thing.
很可能大部分时候做的都是错事，
And as a result, you get reactions.
结果就会造成不良的后果反应。
And the Bhagavatam says that one of the reactions is that one's bodily stature, it reduces drastically.
圣殿国家法坛当中描述说，一个结果就是人的身高会大大的幅度的减少。
For example, it said that one will be very tall if he grows to 3 foot,
说
3 feet.
一个人能长到3英尺，他都算很高的人了。
Like, the height of a child.
就是长到像现在的小孩那么高的时候，都算是很高的人了。
And these kind of anomalies you'll see in Kali Yuga.
随着卡利年代的推进，我们会越来越看到这种现象。
That the governments of the world will plunder the citizens to such an extent that they have to run to the forest for shelter.
政府会大肆的掠夺民众，他们逼得民众不得不逃到森林里面去。
There'll be shortages of food.
而且食物匮乏。
So you see, if you do the wrong thing, then nature herself will withhold, the natural resources.
如果我们会继续从事罪恶活动的话，大自然也会保留它一直在提供给我们的资源。
To a certain extent, we're already starting to see this.
其实这样的现象，我们也慢慢能够看到了。
For the last several years, all these strange changes in the weather patterns.
就像过去几年，世界范围内的气候形态的变化，
Some places having droughts,
有的地方有干旱，
others floods,
有的地方发生了洪涝，
earthquakes.
还有地震。
They're on the increase.
这些自然灾害只是在不断的增加，
Volcanic eruptions, they're on the increase.
还有火山爆发也在增加。
And all of these different reactions that come as a result of sinful activities, Mother Nature is dishing out more and more and more.
这些自然灾害的频发，都是因为我们罪恶活动导致的，而大自然母亲只是不断的在释放。
And as we study Prabhupada's his gradual progression as he was introducing Krishna consciousness, his first focus was to introduce Harinam and books.
释迦牟尼佛在推广 Krishna 知觉的过程当中，他是循序渐进的来推广的。首先，他在大范围的传播的是圣灵和经典。
Because he wanted to provide education,
因为他想先提供给人们教育，
to give people knowledge,
给人们知识，
so they can understand what's right and what's wrong.
有了知识，人们才能分清对错。
What actions are going to help them advance, and which actions are going to help them go downwards.
才能明白什么样的活动能够提升人类，什么样的活动会让人堕落。
He also wanted to introduce Harinam in the hope that the heart will be purified.
他也想大范围的引入推广哈利纳启送圣灵，这样的话，人们的内心才会打开。
And this is clearly at the forefront of his planning for an international society.
这是释迦牟尼佛在筹划去创办全世界范围内的国际Krishna 知觉协会的时候，首先想到的。
Again, please remember
请大家要记住的是，
that Prabhupada's first purpose
科办的第一个目的是
was to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large,
他设下的一宗7大宗旨的第一个就是系统的向社会大众传播灵性知识。
and to educate all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalances of life.
教授社会大众灵性生活的技巧，以便抑制社会生活的失衡状态。
And to achieve real unity and peace in the world.
这样才能在世界上带来和平和繁荣。
So he wanted to systematically present the knowledge.
他想要系统的向社会大众呈现这门灵性知识。
And of course, the best way to do that is to capture the knowledge in books.
最佳的方式就是把这些知识记载在、浓缩在这些书籍里面。
Because we know very well if we tell someone something, they really can't retain it very long.
因为如果只是口头的告诉人们一些知识的话，它是无法长久的停留在人内心的。
Up. Make sure you're awake. If we just tell someone something, they're not going to remember.
如果我们只是口头的讲述的话，人们是记不下来的。
But if we can give them a book, it's something that they can refer to again and again and again.
如果能给人一本书，他就能反复的去参阅。
Thus, Prabhupada put his full effort in, translating and publishing the books.
所以释勒帕帕德才花了大量的功夫来翻译和出版这些书籍。
Now, of course, we need help to understand our duty. The books are there. If we're so fortunate to be born in a devotee family, good parenting can also help that.
我们要怎样理解我们的职责到底是什么？要理解这一点，我们需要帮助。从哪里获得帮助？首先从这些书籍里面。其次，如果我们足够幸运的话，出生在奉献的家庭，父母就可以给我们这样帮助。
And in this next series of quotes, Prabhupada really emphasizes this point.
接下来几段话，释勒帕德强调了这一点。
This is a very famous quote from the 5th canto.
这是第5篇当中一个非常著名的诗节。
Please read that for me.
请大家一起来读。
不能将依靠自己的人从生死轮回中解救出来的人，永远都不该让灵性导师、父亲、丈夫、母亲或被崇拜的爱人。
Next.
这些孩子是归纳给我们的，他们是外强好，我们必须小心保护他们。他们不是普通的孩子，他们是外公他的孩子。我们很幸运能够给他们机会继续在贝纳智慧中进步，这是很大的责任。
Of course, the idea is here, if from a young age, if one can learn these principles and imbibe them, then they can form the foundation for one's development in spiritual life for the rest of one's life.
这两段话强调的要点是说，如果一个人可能在生命的早期就开始学习并且吸收这些灵性的知识，他就会给日后的灵性生活打下坚实的基础。
We'll look at one more purport here.
再看一个钥匙，
Bolo bolo.
一起来读。
不得按照一个孩子的倾向来培养他，否则不能培养出他的特定的脾性。灵性导师或老师的责任就是观察一个孩子的心理活动，并因此训练他从事某种具体的职责。
So whether the parents or whether the early teachers, they were to help to identify the particular psychological nature of a child and then help that child develop a particular, tendency in the Varnashram system.
不管是父母还是启蒙老师，都有职责去观察一个儿童的天性，他的心理特征，以便在Varnashram体系当中找到这个孩子的位置，他的本质。
But unfortunately, most of us were not so fortunate.
但不幸的是，我们大部分人并没有这么幸运。
For those of us who were, it's a head start.
如果说有幸能够有这样的条件的人，那他起点就很高。
But it's not a guarantee.
但是起点高也不能保证最后的成功。
It's an opportunity.
这当然是一个很好的机会。
It's like anything else in life. It really depends on what you do with it.
就像生活中任何一件事一样，有好的机会也不能保证成功，看你怎么用这个机会。
If you take advantage of the
如
opportunity,
果能够充分把握这个机会的话，
then it's an opportunity to more quickly accelerate one's spiritual advancement.
这个机会就能够让你加速灵性进步。
But if not,
如果没有的话，
it's just a good opportunity lost.
如果没有充分把握，这个好机会就被浪费掉了。
Most of us began later in life.
我们大部分人都是在之后的生活当中才遇到的灵性知识。
Most of us, by the mercy of Prabhupada, came in contact with his teachings.
我们大部分人是因为借着释迦帕帕这个仁慈，才接触到他的教导。
How many here came in contact with the Prabhupada's movement first through a book?
有在座的有多少奉献者是通过书籍接触到释迦帕帕这个运动的？
Okay. Well, that's few actually. How many through a book? Again, raise through a book.
有多少是通过书籍接触到कृष्णा知学的？
Okay. How many through a friend?
有多少是通过朋友？
And how many through some other means?
有多少是通过其他方式？
Well, some of you didn't raise your hands. Some of you did not raise your hands.
还有奉献者一次手都没有举，是什么情况？
So I guess that means that you were born as a pure devotee.
是不是剩下的都是就本来就出生在纯粹奉献者的家庭？
That's our assumption.
那是我们的推测。
If so, we bow down to you.
如果是真是这样的话，我们向你们顶戴。
And thank you for coming and giving us your association today.
感谢你们出生在纯粹奉献者家庭的你们，今天来到这里给我们纯粹的联谊。
But the selection of a spiritual master is something of a very serious nature.
选择灵性导师是一件很严肃的事情，
It's not something to be done impulsively.
不是一时冲动就选的，
It's not out of sentiment or fanaticism.
不是感情用事或者是一时狂热。
Please remember what Prabhupada says in the Gita,
释迦帕帕在《国家梵歌》当中是怎么说的？
that religion without philosophy is sentiment or fanaticism.
说没有哲学的宗教就是感情用事或是狂热，
And philosophy without religion is mental speculation.
没有宗教的哲学不过是心智思辨。
So Prabhupada wanted us to understand very clearly what it means to take shelter. He wanted us to understand, Guru Tattva.
释迦帕帕希望我们能够清晰地理解 Guru Tattva 有关 Guru 的真理，知道波地到底是什么意思。
Therefore, Prabhupada says in this excerpt from one Bhagavad Gita lecture, therefore no one should accept blindly any guru, and nobody should blindly accept any disciple. They must behave one another, be with one another or observe one another for at least 1 year. This is the instruction by Sanatana Goswami in his Hari Bhakti Vilas.
释迦帕帕在《国家梵歌》的一个诗集的讲座当中谈到说，因此任何人都不该盲目地选择任何 Guru， 任何人都不该盲目地接受任何 Guru， 他们应该了解彼此的行为至少1年。这是 Sanatana Goswami 在他的 Hari Bhakti Vilas 当中的叙事。
And as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is instructing Srila Sanatana Goswami, he tells him very specifically what that book should contain.
在是Chaitanya Mahaprabhu给 Sanatana Goswami 的讯息当中讲到，他的书籍当中应该包括什么？他说，你的书籍应该讲述真正的Guru和真正的门徒的特征，这样一个人在接受一位灵性导师前，就能确切地明白灵性导师的地位。同样，灵性导师也应该确知门徒的位置。
So there are certain characteristics that one should be looking for.
所以，一个人要选灵性导师， 有什么样的特征，有标准的。
Prabhupada gave examples.
施乐帕帕德讲到了一些例子，
Just like if you're looking for a valuable gem,
就像你在找一个宝石，
say it's a diamond,
比如说是钻石，
you have to know the actual characteristics of a diamond.
你得知道钻石有什么样的特征。
Otherwise, glass that's cut in a certain way may sparkle similar to a diamond.
否则的话，可能普通的玻璃，它经过一定的雕刻，也会发光，看上去像钻石一样。
And they even have a name for that. It's called costume jewelry.
嗯，
Costume, like costume jewelry. It's something that is, you don't know the word costume? Like an ornament that is inexpensive.
就像是无价的珍宝，无价的这珠宝。
And so that kind of jewelry anybody can buy.
这种仿制的无价的珍宝，其实是没有价值的这种珠宝，是任何人都买得起的。
Because it is glass or plastic.
因为它只不过是用玻璃或者是塑料仿制的，
But it may look very similar.
但看上去和真的珠宝一样。
And to the untrained eye, you really can't tell the difference.
没有经验的人，没有经过锤炼的双眼，他就识别不出来。
But those who know the characteristics of a real diamond can immediately differentiate.
但知道真正的钻石是什么样子的人，他很快就会发现。
So in a similar way, if one is thinking to take shelter of a guru, one should know what characteristics a guru should possess.
所以，当一个人在考虑托庇一个 guru 的时候，他得知道真正的 guru 有什么样的特征。
He says further,
继续讲到，
Bolo.
一起来读一下。
Now what do we
见面至少1年，打错了。
now what do we see here?
这段话当中说了什么？
The principle of waiting for at least 1 year.
讲到要见面或认识至少1年，
This wasn't something that Prabhupada made up.
这个标准不是施拉帕帕德他自己编造出来的，
But it's something which was actually described in Hari Bhakti Vilas.
这在哈利巴拉斯这个经典当中也说了1年。
And therefore, Prabhupada followed the system, a check and balance system of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra.
所以施拉帕帕也在强调公萨的萨这个相互制衡的体系。
He doesn't just make the rules up as he went along.
他不是自己想象或编造出来的这些规范原则。
But these are Shastric principles.
他说的每一条都是有经典的依据的。
So thus we have this 1 year period.
所以我们在起笔之前也有1年的准备期、观察期。
It's an opportunity for prospective disciples to study prospective guru and vice versa.
这也是准门徒和即将他接受的启迪灵性导师之间互相观察、考察的1年。
And finally, Prabhupada drives the point home.
接下来，
Acceptance of spiritual master must be selected, you see, after careful examination, just like one selects his bride or bridegroom after careful examination.
这段话是要把它就讲得更清楚了。他说，必须经过挑选后再接受灵性导师，经过仔细的考核，就像选新娘或新郎也必须经过仔细考核。
You study for some time.
先相互考察一段时间，
Is this person suitable?
看看这个人是不是合适。
Even when we study, doesn't always work out either.
即便是考察考核，也并不一定结果总是很好。
There's always a tendency to put one's best foot forward. Always the tendency to show one's best side.
那刚开始考核期，我们都容易先展示出来的都先是自己的好的一面，
And later on, the real person comes out.
后来才发现这个人的真面目。
The demon inside.
才发现他恶魔的一面。
And we think, who is that person?
我们这时候才发现，这个人到底是谁？
Where did they come from?
他是从哪来的？
They were so nice before.
之前不是很好吗？
Yeah. So, what to speak of a spiritual master? One should examine.
那选择灵性导师就更是如此了，要有一个考核期。
As well as consult with senior devotees.
并且要向年长的资深的奉献者咨询。
And therefore, they help the process along. We have the disciples course, so one understands at least the basics of Guru Tattva.
为了帮助大家更谨慎的去考察、去了解，我们有门徒课程，让奉献者能够更好的了解 Guru Tattva。
The position of Srila Prabhupada as the founder Acharya.
了解到释迦帕帕的作为创办灵性导师的位置。
As we've been discussing the roles of the Diksha Gurus, the Shiksha Gurus.
我们也谈到了训示灵性导师 Diksha Guru， 训示灵性导师 Shiksha Guru 及灵性导师 Diksha Guru， 他分别有什么样的职责？
And nowadays, devotees have an opportunity to delve more deeply into the Vedic literatures.
现在奉献者也有机会更深入的、系统的学习各大经典。
Bhakti Shastri is being taught.
我们也有奉献者在讲授Bhakti Shastri 各大经典课程，
Either in person or online.
有的是实地的去教授，有的是网上教授。
We have the VIHE or the MIHE.
还有 VIHE 文达高等学院和 MIHE 高等学院。
It's good in one sense.
某种意义上来说，有噪音也是好的。
Hard to sleep with so much noise.
这么吵也睡不着。
Must be very annoying for you, for those of you who want to take a nap.
所以想睡觉的人可能会觉得很讨厌。
Anyway, we hope they finish soon so you can continue your rest period.
希望他们能很快的做完，这样的话你就可以继续休息了。
So what we have learned from all of this
然后这些都我们从之前的几段话当中学到了什么？
is that a guru is really understood through hearing,
要了解故事需要聆听的，
not merely from seeing.
并不是看来的，
Just by the externals you cannot judge.
只是看外在的表象是无法做出正确判断的。
I always ask people why they select.
那有人想要说孤立我的时候，我总会问他们为什么要选择我。
And someone says, because, the person looks very clean.
有的人会说，因为你看上去很干净。
Or they stand like a guru.
或者说，他选择这个咕噜是因为他站像一个咕噜。
Whatever that means.
不知道他到底是什么意思。
I don't know how a guru should stand.
我不知道一个咕噜一个真正的一个咕噜是什么一个站姿。
Should they be like this?
应该这么站吗？
How do they sit?
怎么做呢？
If they sit straight, is that a better guru?
是不是做的越直，这个咕噜就越好？
Or if they go like this?
是这样，弓着背就不行。
If you just see the externals, you're really not going to see very much.
所以看外在的外貌是看不出来的。
Others report because it's the first guru who came to town.
也有人说，因为这个咕噜是我第一个见到的咕噜。
And because I want to get this over as soon as possible, I select this one.
我只想尽快的选一个就算了，所以我就选这个。
Less about the person, less about the relationship. It's all about that prize, the initiation.
所以人们很多人更关注的就是并不是这个人咕噜本人到底怎样的建立关系，而是去尽快的想得到启迪而已。
Or my friend told me to do it.
还有人说是因为我朋友让我选这个咕噜的。
There are many, many different reasons that are given.
有很多不同的 的理由。
But what Shastra tells us is that we understand through hearing.
但经典告诉我们要理解一个 guru 需要通过聆听。
So, if we can somehow imbibe the teachings of Prabhupada,
如果我们能够吸收释拉帕帕的教导，
where is this? Where are you? That's what it said, but what's this 2:7 to 11? Where's that? Yeah, we're finished with that. We're finished with that. We're going on. Yeah. So Prabhupada is like the foundation.
释拉帕帕就像我们的根基，
We actually understand his teachings.
我们必须理解他的讯息、他的教导，
And we actually imbibe his teachings.
吸收他的教导，
And we follow those who follow him.
我们追随那些追随他的人。
It'll be much easier to understand what our mission is within his mission.
这样做的话，我们就能够理解，在他的使命当中，我们的使命是什么。
It's an interesting photo because this was the cornerstone laying ceremony for the Bhaktivedanta Gurukul in Vrindavan.
这是 Vrindavan Bhaktivedanta Gurukul 的奠基仪式。
And so they are, laying the cornerstone to build the foundation. And so Prabhupada is there. And he's also the foundation. He's the foundation. He's the founder.
奠基仪式上，这个就是标志着这个Gurukul 的一个根基。而奠基仪式上旁边就站着我们的奠基人释拉帕布帕。
Prabhupada told us that a devotee is as thoughtful as a non-devotee is speculative.
帕布拉也说了，就像非奉献者喜欢思辨，奉献者也是善于深思的。
So we should be very, very thoughtful. We should be thinking, how can we be most absorbed in the service of Krishna?
我们得善于去深思，得想怎样最大限度的沉浸在专注于对 Krishna 的服务中。
What things are most important to us?
什么样的事情对我们来说是最重要的？
What things will help us to progress?
哪些事情能够帮助我们进步？
And so what we're going to do now,
接下来要做的是，
we're going to ask you to answer these questions. And this is for you. It's not for anyone else right now.
接下来请大家回答这5个问题。那这个问题是回答给自己的。
If you have no pen and paper, you can just note them or snap with your phone. You can answer them later.
没有笔或纸的奉献者可以先拍一下，然后不是结束以后自己可以思考一下，回答这些问题。
And perhaps later we can have some of you share the answers.
讲完之后，我们有时间的话，可以请一些奉献者分享一下自己的答案。
This is for your own understanding.
这几个问题是为了引导我们每一个奉献者自己来理解自己。
An opportunity for you to express in your own words what's most important to you in the context of your practice of Krishna consciousness.
用自己的语言去表述一下，在自己Krishna知觉的修习过程当中，这5个问题你是怎么思考的
Okay? We'll move on now.
我们继续。
So what's very clear now
现在非常清晰的一点是，
is that all gurus and all disciples are dependent on their founder Acharya, as a building is dependent on its foundation.
所有的 guru 和门徒都依靠他们的创办灵性导师，就像建筑依靠地基一样。
And by neglecting this,
要忽略这一点的话，
the building will collapse.
就像是忽略的地基的建筑一样，它很快的会
You
坍
have
塌
that?。Hi, Bo. Do you have that one? That's what I'm talking about. Okay. So ultimately,
终其而言，
whoever we are,
无论我们是谁，
whatever our position is,
无论我们处在什么样的位置，
we should see how we can become all that we possibly can be in Prabhupada's mission.
我们要看怎样在释迦帕布的使命当中，去以我们的方式来服务他。
And Prabhupada was very liberal. He was trying to invite everyone, trying to engage everyone.
释迦帕布是非常开明的，他在努力让每一个人参与到服务当中来。
Read this quote for me.
一起来读一下。
无论一个人是什么身份，他都必须先让一切为主服务。如果一个人是联合的学者、科学家、哲学家、诗人等等，他就应该用他的学识去为主的至尊地位。
One should dedicate everything in the service of Krishna.
一个人应该献上一切为 Krishna 服务。
Whether one's a scholar, a scientist, a philosopher, a poet,
不管是学者、科学家、哲学家还是诗人，
he should utilize whatever he has in the service of Krishna.
应该把拥有的一切都用来服务 Krishna。
And Prabhupada, he also says,
他继续说道，
if one's a businessman, an industrialist, an agriculturalist, one should utilize one's wealth in the service of Krishna.
如果一个人是商人、实业家、农场主等等，那么他就应该将自己辛苦赚来的钱用于主的事业 ，Krishna 的事业。
And he says something quite profound. One should try to engage in the service of the Lord everything for which one has specific attraction.
他继续说了比较深刻的一点，他说一个人无论对什么感兴趣，都应该努力将之用于对主的服务。
Because we all have a certain nature and we all have a certain inclination to engage our abilities in the service of Krishna.
因为每个人都有特定的天性，也有将这种天性、这种能力用于服务 Krishna 的倾向。
If you're a businessman, do business for Krishna.
如果你是商人，就为 Krishna 去做生意；
If you're a teacher, teach for Krishna.
是老师，就为 Krishna 去教学；
If you're an artist, paint for Krishna.
如果是画家，就为 Krishna 去作画；
If you're a musician, sing for Krishna.
如果是音乐家，就为 Krishna 去歌唱；
If you're a cook, cook for Krishna.
如果是厨师，就为 Krishna 去做饭。
Whatever ability you may have,
无论你有什么样的能力，
use that in Krishna's service.
都要把它用来去服务 Krishna。
And that is yoga.
这就是瑜伽。
You engage your propensity and you connect with Krishna through that particular service.
无论有什么样的能力，就把这个能力用来去服务 Krishna 和 Krishna 实现连接。
Okay, quick review.
很快来复习一下。
So first, explain the importance of knowing and doing one's own duty, as well as why it can be difficult.
履行组织职责履行自己的职责，的重要性在哪里？为什么很困难？
Answers.
我们尝试回答一下。
因为这个年代的瓦尔纳他们还希望去因为腐败，没有真正的建立起来。
Varnashram is not established in this age, so it makes it difficult.
And it's Kali Yuga, and there's mixed population, because there's Varna Sankara. Varna Sankara means unwanted progeny.
那Sankara 就是因为Varnashram体系没有建立起来，所以有混杂的人口。
So we're all mixed, Prabhupada said, we're all mixed up.
那他们说我们都是混杂的。
And we see that. People are mixed up. They don't know what to do, what not to do.
我们也看到，的确人们是比较混乱状态，不知道该做什么，不该做什么。
Interestingly enough, I met someone just recently.
最近有意思的是，我也遇到一些人，
They had a good education,
他们受的教育很好，
and they had good opportunities,
也有很好的机会，
but they said, I don't really know what the goal of life is.
但我不知道要怎么样过下去。
I don't understand the purpose of doing what I'm doing.
我不知道我现在做的这个事情有什么意义。
So that this person kept saying, I feel lost.
这个人就反复跟我说，感到迷茫，
I don't seem to fit in. I don't seem to find my place.
我找不到一个适合我的地方。
That's the nature of Kali Yuga.
卡利年代的本身就是这样。
So it's important to understand what our duty is.
所以理解我们的职责很重要。
And we learn that we can do that, well, through consulting scripture, of course, but also from the mentors in our life.
通过阅读经典，通过去咨询我们人生的一些导师，就可以了解。
And that's kind of the second point.
这是第二点。
If we're so fortunate to be born in a family of Vaishnavas, well, perhaps from parents we can imbibe. If not, then we have to seek teachers that can help us.
如果足够幸运出生在一个Vaishnava丰盛的家庭的话，我们就可以从父母那里得到引导。如果没有这样的条件，我们就要找比较适合的、有资格的老师来指导我们。
Be they Diksha or Shiksha gurus.
无论是启迪灵性导师还是训示灵性导师。
We learn early on, the scripture says you can only have one Diksha guru.
一会儿我们会看到经典当中说到 Diksha Guru 启迪灵性导师只有一位。
But we can have many Shiksha gurus.
但 Shiksha Guru 训示灵性导师可以有很多位。
Providing that we have trust.
但前提是我们有信任。
Someone we have faith in.
我们对这个人有足够的信任。
That person will guide me properly.
相信他能够恰当的指导我们。
And not exploit me.
而且不会利用我们。
Because in Kali Yuga, it's all about exploitation.
因为卡利年代就是相互利用的。
One person tries to exploit another.
一个人在试图利用另外一个人。
And thus people are very guarded.
所以人们总是有防卫心理。
They don't feel confident to confide in others.
没有信心，不愿意互相去吐露心扉。
Perhaps their trust has been betrayed many times.
也许是因为他们之前很多次信任别人却被背叛了。
So after those, many negative experiences, it's very hard to gain trust.
有了很多次的这种负面的体验之后，他再就很难去信任别人了。
Yeah, in spiritual pursuits, we're advised that we must find some persons to guide us.
那在灵性的修持过程当中，我们的建议是要找到能够引导我们的人。
Otherwise, if we try to become our own teacher,
否则的话，如果我们想做自己的老师的话，
our own guide,
想做自己的引导，
then as the proverb goes, we'll have a fool for a pupil.
有一个谚语，大致意思是：你想当自己的老师，也就是你做自己的学生，那么这个学生也是一个傻学生。
We're also given guidelines of how to select.
关于怎样选择这个导师，也有一些原则。
There's a process.
有一个程序。
Knowing what you're looking for.
让你明白你要找的是什么。
And largely that is understood through hearing.
那要了解这些知识，主要是通过聆听。
And lastly, we see that the foundation, the underpinning of all of this is Prabhupada. He's the founder, like the foundation of the building.
那所有的这些灵性导师的最根本的灵性导师是释迦牟尼佛，他就像是一个建筑的根基。
He's the foundational spiritual master.
他是根本的灵性导师。
And although there are many spiritual masters that come after him,
虽然在他之后有很多的灵性导师到来，
there's only one Prabhupada,
但Prabhupada只有一位。
the master at whose feet all other masters sit.
Prabhupada 的意思是，所有的灵性导师都坐在他的莲花足下的人。
So to the extent that we learn to keep Prabhupada in the center,
我们越是学习将释迦牟尼佛置于中心，
to that extent the foundation will be very strong.
我们的根基就越扎实。
And, the building of ISKCON that we construct on top of that will also be, very firmly anchored.
我们建立在这个根基之上的ISKCON这个大建筑就能够更牢固、更稳固。
We're going to roll on to Lesson 8,
来看第8课，
which is a very important chapter. Please, if you don't know anything, if you haven't followed anything yet, please focus on this particular chapter.
第8课是极其重要的一课。 之前的如果大家都没有记得或者都错过了的话，一定要专注的去学这一课。
To love is to cooperate.
爱即合作。
Yeah. Love Prabhupada, love what he gave us.
爱施拉帕布帕的，爱他给予我们的一切。
Yeah. Now, why is this so important?
为什么这么重要呢？
Because we find that because the members of the Gaudiya Math did not follow the instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to cooperate.
因为高迪亚玛这个成员就是因为没有去履行圣 Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 的训示，也就是让他们合作的训示。
As Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur warned Srila Prabhupada at Radha Kund in that meeting that there would be a fire in the mat after his departure, or there would soon be a fire in the mat. That's exactly what happened.
昨天我们也谈到了，在圣 Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 离世前，他在 Radha Kund 和施拉帕帕的有一次会面，在会面当中，他就提醒施拉帕帕的说，在他离世不久，高殿玛的将会有一次烈火，将又会有爆发烈火，而且事实的确如此。
Immediately after his physical departure, leading disciples started to fight over properties, over various assets. They were in the courts, trying to gain control of assets through legal means.
就在圣 Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 离世不久，高殿玛的几个领导呢，奉献者就开始相互争斗，在争地产，在争一些资产，甚至走上法庭，想通过法律的渠道争夺这些资产。
So Prabhupada wanted to follow his spiritual master's request that a GBC was formed, governing body commission, and then everyone would work cooperatively under the direction of this GBC.
于是施拉帕帕的就开始遵循他灵性导师的训示，按照他的要求成立 GBC 管理委员会，所有的人都在管理委员会 GBC 的领导下来合作。
And because the Gaudiya Math members did not follow that instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the society of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it started to splinter into many different groups.
就是因为高殿玛的奉献者没有严格的遵守 Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 的训示，所以在他离世之后，高殿玛就开始四分五裂。
Yet, although Prabhupada told us to cooperate,
虽然施拉帕帕告诉我们要合作了，
this is Kali Yuga.
但这是在卡利年代。
Two characteristics, quarrel and hypocrisy.
卡利年代两个特征就是虚伪和纷争。
So it's the nature of this age.
这个年代的本性就是这样。
It makes it so difficult to get along.
这个卡利年代的本性让人们难以相处。
So we're going to look at this.
我们来看一下。
So this quote, I'll just read. So you just do your service, he continued. That is all that is necessary. This is what love means, to do service.
施拉帕帕说，所以你就继续做你的服务，需要的就是服务，这就是含义，就是做服务。
And the context of this is that Prabhupada had arrived in the Philippines, in Manila.
这段话发生的背景是，当时施拉帕帕到了菲律宾马尼拉。
And in those days, they didn't really have a proper temple. He was staying in a hotel.
当时没有一个正规的庙宇，施拉帕帕是要住在酒店里。
And his long-time servant, who is pictured here, Shruti Kirti Prabhu, was massaging him.
舒达 Kirti Prabhu 在为施拉帕帕的按摩。
And although he was so close to Prabhupada,
舒达 Kirti Prabhu 是对施拉帕帕很亲近的。
offering a whole variety of personal services.
他为释勒帕帕做了很多各种各样的亲身服务。
Still, he was seeing that when Prabhupada would go to a particular place, the devotees would greet him with big kirtans.
他看到释勒帕帕去到不同地方的时候，很多奉献者都热情地接待他，大声的kirtan。
They were jumping up and down,
他们跳上跳下，
so happy to see him,
看到他都很激动，很高兴。
then so sad to see when he departed.
他离开的时候也非常的难过。
And Shrutikirti, he said, these devotees seem to have so much love for you, Srila
是
Prabhupada.
他 kirti 跑过去跟释勒帕帕说，这些奉献者看上去对您充满了那么多的爱。
But even though I'm with you all the time, I don't think I possess that level of love.
虽然我一直跟你在一起，但我却觉得我没有像他们那样对你充满这么多的爱。
So he was hoping that Prabhupada would say something to relieve his mind.
他在期待着释勒帕帕能说些什么说些话能够安慰他。
But Prabhupada remained silent.
但释勒帕帕却保持着沉默。
And sometime later, after, as was the usual routine, after getting his massage, Prabhupada would take bath, he would change, and then he would take his lunch.
在释勒帕帕做完按摩、沐浴之后、更衣之后，然后他在荣耀午餐。
And he would chant his Gayatri mantra before taking lunch.
荣耀午餐之前，他会唱诵他的Gayatri mantra。
And as soon as Prabhupada finished the Gayatri mantra, he called Shrutikirti in his room.
他在荣耀午餐之后，他就叫Shrutikirti Prabhu。
And Shrutikirti Prabhu described that he offered his obeisances.
Shrutikirti Prabhu 描述到说，他先是禀拜了Prabhupada。
And when he looked up at Prabhupada, he had a very serious face.
他抬头看释勒帕帕的时候，他神情很严肃。
And so Prabhupada said, "So,
释勒帕帕说：“那么
do you like serving me?"
你喜欢服务我吗？”
And Prabhu replied, "Yes, I like serving you very much."
Shrutikirti Prabhu 说：“是的，我非常喜欢服务你。”
Then that is love, Prabhupada said.
Prabhupada 说：“那就是爱。”
He said, everyone can do so many things.
他说：“每个人都能做很多事情，
Singing, dancing, jumping up and down.
可以唱，可以跳，可以跳上跳下。
But he said, you are actually doing something.
但你却实实在在的在做事，
Isn't that love?"
这难道不是爱吗？
And Shrutikirti Prabhu said, "I guess so."
Shrutikirti Prabhu 说：“我想是吧。”
So Prabhupada said this, "So just continue to do your service."
所以这就是这段话的由来。他说：“就是你就继续做你的服务，
That is all that is necessary.
需要的就是服务，
This is what love means,
这就是爱的含义。
to do service.
爱就意味着做服务。
So sometimes we have this kind of sentimental notion of what it means,
有时候我们谈到爱的时候，我们觉得只是一种情感。
that only like the very intimate, personal association with the guru is, a real gratifying type of activity.
好像觉得只有和哺乳有亲身的、亲密的联谊，这样才能让自己感到心满意足。
But Prabhupada seems to be saying something different here.
但是释勒帕帕在这里讲到的却是不一样的概念。
That the real connection with Guru
他说，真正的和哺乳的连接
is through service.
就是去为他服务。
The true expression of love for Guru is surrender service.
表达对哺乳的爱的方式就是为他做服务。
Another time I recall, so Prabhupada was in Vrindavan,
我还记得有一次，释勒帕帕在本达本。
and this was before the temple was open, and the construction workers were there, and the many construction materials were just all over the place.
当时的庙宇还没有建成，很多建筑工人还在工地上干活，建筑的材料也四处都是。
And Prabhupada was going out the gate for a walk.
释勒帕帕走出大门要去走走，
And every day there was this devotee there.
每一天都有一个奉献者在那里等他，
I'm not going to mention his name.
那就不说是谁了。
And he was, quite well versed in scriptures. He had memorized a number of verses.
他也有很精通经典，也记了一些经典的诗节。
And so every day he'd be waiting for Prabhupada.
每天他都会在那里等待，然后跟Prabhupada打招呼。
And just as Prabhupada was passing,
Prabhupada每次正要去经过他的时候，
he would start chanting some Sanskrit verses.
他就会开始给他唱诵一些梵文诗节。
And he kept doing this day after day.
每天都重复这么做。
While everyone else was doing a variety of different services because there was so much to be done.
其他人都在做各种各样的服务，因为要做的事情太多了。
So one day he just turned to this person.
有一天，释迦帕帕的就转向这个人。
And he said, "Can you please do something practical?"
他说：“你能不能做一些实际的事情？”
He wanted him to do something practical.
释迦帕帕的希望他能做一些实际的事情。
Not that verse chanting is not practical.
只是去唱诵诗，并不是说唱诵诗节不实际。
But according to the time, place, and circumstance,
但得看时间、地点和具体的情形。
the need for active service was there.
那这个情况下是需要做一些积极的、实际的服务的。
But this particular disciple thought he wanted to please Prabhupada through chanting verses.
但这个奉献者是觉得这时候他想要通过唱诵一些梵文诗节来取悦释迦帕帕。
Whereas Prabhupada really needed him to do some other service.
但是释迦帕帕真正需要的是他做一些其他的实际的服务。
So the point is, love is expressed through service.
总之，我们要说的是，爱是通过做服务来表达的。
That service may take a variety of different forms.
服务的形式可以是多种多样的。
But the main thing is, the main connection we have with Guru, with Prabhupada in fact, is through active service.
最主要的是我们和咕噜和释迦帕帕的关系是基于我们的积极的服务。
Now here is a very famous quote that every devotee should really memorize.
接下来这一句话是非常重要的，是每一个奉献者都应该背下来。
Please read this.
请大家来读。
Yes, your love for me, said Srila Prabhupada, will be shown by how much you cooperate to keep this institution together after I am gone. So this is one of his last instructions.
这是释迦帕帕的最后的训示之一。
It was so important to him.
这对他来说也是非常重要的。
It's something that he repeated again and again and again during his manifest presence.
那在他实际临在的时候，他也反复在强调这一点。
But he spoke this just days before he actually departed.
他又说了这一点，就在他离世之前，他又强调了这一点。
Prabhupada was on his deathbed.
释迦帕帕的就躺在病床上。
And he could have been speaking so many things.
当然，本来是可以讲很多。
Of course, he was dictating the Bhagavatam, the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, almost to the last.
当然，他在病床上的时候还在口述，圣给不讲第10篇的要旨。
Actually, he was the last chapter he worked on was the Brahma Vimohana Lila.
最后一个评注的一章就是 Brahma Vimohana Lila，主 Brahma 被迷惑的这个小时光。
And those purports are as lucid and deep as any other purports of the whole Bhagavatam, if not more so.
而他在病床上最后所口述的这个瓦盘的要旨是那么的清晰，那么的深刻，跟其他的章节、其他篇章一样的深刻清晰。
So Prabhupada, he was not affected, by his bodily condition.
外在的身体上的疾病并没有影响他的服务的质量。
Although the body was practically, broken down to nothing, his consciousness was crystal clear.
虽然说当时他的身体状况已经非常糟糕了，可是他的知觉却没有受到丝毫的影响。
And with that crystal clear consciousness, he emphasized this point.
他的知觉是那么的清晰，以这样清晰的知觉，他说了这样的话。
Therefore, it's a foundational principle of ISKCON.
所以这就成为了伊斯康的根本的原则。
And even though we don't like it,
虽然我们不喜欢这个原则，
because we're all so different,
因为我们都是不一样的。
we always have different ways of seeing and doing things.
我们讲话的方式、做事的方式也都是不一样的。
If for no other reason, Prabhupada told us to do it.
如果真的没有任何理由想要去合作的话，至少因为知道他教我们这么做，我们也应该这么做。
And if we actually love him,
如果我们真的爱他的话，
then we follow his instructions.
就应该追随他的训示。
If we don't follow his instructions,
如果不追随他的训示的话，
it means we don't love him. It's very simple.
说明我们就根本不爱他，就是这么简单。
So as difficult as this is at times,
的确有时候是很困难的，
it's something that we're duty bound to follow.
但是这是我们一定我们的职责使然，我们的职责就是追随这个训示。
Now this same point is recorded a little differently in Tamal Krishna Goswami's diary. He says, "Your love for me will be tested. How after my departure you maintain this institution. We have glamour and people are feeling our weight. This should be maintained."
同样的意思，在Maharaja Swami 的日记当中也有记载。他说，圣帕帕的强调，我离开后，你们如何维系这个社团，这会考验你们对我的爱。我们有魅力，人们也感受到了我们的分量，这一点需要保持下去。
So his consciousness was, his realization was that with cooperation anything could be accomplished, and without it, things would just be destroyed.
对，是的，他的知觉，他的觉悟就在于有合作，就一切就有可能能够取得任何成就。如果没有合作的话，就会一事无成。
In one lecture, Prabhupada says, when you do something in cooperation with the Lord, that is called bhakti.
如果说你们配合主做一些事情，这就称为bhakti。
In a letter, he says,
后来他又说到。
the test of our actual dedication and sincerity to serve the spiritual master will be in this mutual cooperative spirit to push on this movement and not make factions and deviate.
他说，我们在对灵性导师的服务中，到底有多少付出和真诚？考验就在于我们如何以互相合作的精神推动这个运动，不搞派系斗争，不偏离正道。
So that's very clear.
很清楚。
These are only a few of hundreds of quotations.
这只是他讲过的有关合作的几百个引言当中的几句而已。
Again and again and again, Prabhupada tells us we must cooperate.
合作的原则是要把它一次又一次的反复强调。
At the same time,
但同时，
he tells us that we should not expect utopia.
同时他也提醒我们别指望有乌托邦。
Well, that where there will never be a problem.
也就是说，别指望没有任何问题的乌托邦。
Read this for me, please.
请大家来读一下。
So we're different.
我们是不同的。
There may no doubt be friction at times.
毫无疑问，我们有时候会有一些摩擦。
But if the common goal is to serve Guru and Krishna,
那如果共同的目标是服务 Guru 和 Krishna 的话，
then it's not considered to be material. It's considered to be spiritual, according to what Prabhupada says.
根据释迦帕帕的说法，如果有共同的目标，那么这个摩擦也不是物质的。
I want to read this letter to you. It's a very important letter.
这一封信非常重要，我们可以读一下。
This is just an extraction.
这只是一封信当中的节选，
But please listen carefully to this.
请大家仔细的聆听。
It is not so much that because there may be some faults in our God brothers and God sisters,
并不是因为我们的神兄弟、神姐妹有一些错误或者缺陷，
or because there may be some mismanagement or lack of cooperation,
或者因为缺乏合作而管理不善，
that this is due to being impersonalist.
不是因为这些，就说明我们非人格，
No.
不是这样。
It is the nature of a living condition to always have some fault.
我们受条件限制的状况就决定我们必然会有一些错误。
Even in the spiritual world, there is some fault and envy.
即便在灵性世界也存在错误和嫉妒。
But it is not the same as material fault or material envy.
但这种错误和嫉妒是不同于物质的嫉妒和错误。
It is transcendental because it is all based on Krishna.
它是超然的，因为这一切都基于 Krishna。
Sometimes when one gopi would serve Krishna very nicely, the others would say, "Oh, she has done nicely. Now let me do better for pleasing Krishna."
有时候一位牧牛姑娘，服务 Krishna 服务得很好的时候，其他的牧牛姑娘就会说，她服务得这么好，我要做更好的服务来取悦 Krishna。
That is envy.
这是嫉妒，
But it is transcendental,
但这是超然的，
without malice.
不含恶意的。
So we shall not expect that anywhere there is any utopia.
所以我们不能指望在任何地方会存在乌托邦。
Rather, that is impersonalism.
如果这样想的话，才是非人格主义。
People should not expect that even in the Krishna consciousness society, there will be utopia.
即使在 Krishna 知觉的社团当中，人们也不能指望有乌托邦，
Because devotees are persons.
因为奉献者也都是人，
Therefore, there will always be some lacking.
所以总是存在一些匮乏。
But the difference is that their lackings have become transcendental because despite everything they may do, their topmost intention is to serve Krishna.
但这种匮乏却是超然的，因为无论他们做什么，他们的最高的目标都是取悦 Krishna。
The devotees of Krishna are the most exalted persons on this planet, better than kings, all of them. So we should always remember that, and like the bumblebee, always look for the nectar or the best qualities of a person.
Krishna 的奉献者是这个星球上最崇高的人，他们甚至高过国王，所以我们总要像蜜蜂一样去采蜜。
Not like the utopians, who are like the flies, who always go to the open sores or find the faults in a person. And because they cannot find any utopia, or because they cannot find anyone without any faults, they want to become void, merge, nothing. They think that is utopia.
总是要去像蜜蜂一样去采蜜，找优点，而不要像一些总是想找乌托邦、找没有缺陷的人一样，像苍蝇总是去找伤口一样。当他们找不到一个毫无缺陷的一个乌托邦、毫无缺陷的一个人的时候，他们就想变得虚无，想要摆脱一切，于是就走向非人格。
So if there is sometimes slight disagreements between devotees, it is not due to impersonalism, but it is because they are persons, and such disagreements should not be taken very seriously.
所以，当奉献者之间存在差异、存在些微的分歧的时候，并不是因为他们是非人格倾向，而恰恰是因为他们的人格性，他们都是人，所以必然会有分歧，而这样的分歧不应该太当真。
Very interesting point.
很有意思的要点。
Through the years, I've met so many persons.
多年来，我遇到了很多人，
And some, of a neophyte nature,
有的还处在初期的修习阶段。
they say that your society is imperfect.
他说：“你们的社团是不完美的。”
The devotees have imperfections.
奉献者有那么多的不完美，
The devotees have disagreements.
奉献者之间也总是有分歧。
So they challenge, how is this spiritual?
他们于是就挑战说：“这样的社团怎么能算是灵性的呢
because their imagination tells them that spirituality means that it should be just smooth and everyone should just be completely made of the same mold. And like robots, they should all be exactly the same and they should do the same things.
因为处在初期修持阶段的人，他们对灵性生活、灵性社团的一个想象就是，灵性社团中的一切都应该是顺风顺水的，所有的人都像是一个模子里面刻出来一样，像机器人一样一致行动。
They should be devoid of personality.
他们应该是没有任何的个性可言。
Devoid of individuality.
没有任何的个体性。
Devoid of creativity.
没有任何的创意。
This, Prabhupada said, is impersonalism.
释迦牟尼佛说，这样的想法才是非人格主义。
So, we have Prabhupada's thesis, if you will, is to cooperate.
释迦牟尼佛也在一些文章当中又讲到了。
And his you have his thesis, right? Is to cooperate. Thesis? We already did this before. Huh? No. Prabhupada's like his principle. The positive principle is that everyone should cooperate. But at the same time, counter to that is that we shouldn't expect utopia. So how do we bring these two things together? How is there synthesis? And this is what Prabhupada called unity in diversity. Please read this. So the first step to finding unity in diversity is trusting that we have the same common goals. Which all revolves around service to Srila Prabhupada and to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. And if we all share that same basic trust, then it's possible to move forward and sometimes agree to disagree. But, the Prabhupada continues, if we fight on account of diversity, then it is simply the material platform. Please try to maintain the philosophy of unity and diversity that will make our movement successful. So this is the challenge that we all face. Where unity and diversity, it sounds good in principle, but it's difficult to practice in the age of Kali. So the second step is then to identify and agree on timeless principles. What we might call universal principles. Read this quote, please, for me. Then Prabhupada will tell us that this is all based on understanding the consideration of time, candidate, and country.
他说我们要考虑到时间、地点和具体的国家。
What is possible in one country may not be possible in another.
在一个国家可能的事情，在另外一个国家可能就是不可能的。
The Acharya's duty is to accept the essence of devotional service.
Acharya 身份领导师的精髓就在于他会提取领导奉爱服的精髓。
The essence of devotional service must be taken into consideration and not the outward paraphernalia.
应该去关注的是奉爱服务的精髓，而不是外在的条件。
So, it's interesting that Prabhupada introduced the principles very gradually.
Prabhupada 的引入这些原则都是慢慢的、循序渐进的引入的。
In the beginning, it was mostly Harinam.
刚开始的时候，大部分是在做 Harinam.
A little philosophy.
有一点点哲学。
A lot of prasadam.
大量的 prasadam.
I mean a lot of prasadam.
真的是大量的 prasadam.
Because he wanted the devotees to replace their material desires with Krishna's mercy in the form of prasad.
因为他想要用 Krishna 以 prasadam 展示的他的仁慈来替代、来置换奉献者心中的物质欲望。
So it wasn't until quite a bit later that he introduced the four regulative principles.
直到后来他才引入了4项规范原则。
What to speak of all the other rules and regulations?
更何况有其他的规范原则。
Prabhupada was quite liberal in the beginning.
刚开始的时候，知道他是非常开明的。
Because he wanted to attract people and give them the opportunity.
因为他想吸引尽可能多的人，给尽可能多的人机会。
He created the International Society for Krishna Consciousness.
他创办的协会叫国际 Krishna 知觉协会。
Not the International Society for Rules and Regulations Consciousness.
不是国际规范原则协会。
Too much fixated on the rules and regulations can lead to missing the actual purpose of the whole thing.
过度的专注于规范原则，会容易让人去失去奉爱服务的精髓。
Which is to become conscious of Krishna.
奉爱服务的精髓就是知觉到 Krishna.
Not micromanage every single thing that a person does.
而不是去对于每个人做的每一个细节斤斤计较。
We were discussing this the other day.
几天前我们还在谈。
Someone is new to the culture.
一个对这个文化还非常陌生的人。
Has no idea.
一点都不知道的人。
But we expect them to immediately plug in and to do everything according to Srila Rupa Goswami's teachings in the nectar of his devotion.
我们是希望他们能够尽快的能够遵循是 Rupa Goswami 在奉爱甘露当中讲到的奉爱服务的规范原则，按原则来做。
Every little thing.
做每一个细节。
Certain colors should be worn before the deity. Only certain colors should be worn before the deity.
在神像面前只能穿某些颜色的衣服。
You can find that.
我们也能看到有这样的现象。
You can find that, one is supposed to bow down in a certain way.
我们看到有时候，当有一个新的朋友来，要这么顶拜的时候。
With one's left side to the deity.
要身体的左半边朝着神像。
So many things are there.
有很多的原则。
And if someone is only going to be taught that in the beginning,
如果刚开始的时候给人讲的都是这些规范原则的话，
they may think, wow, this is only about, there's so many things I have to learn and do. It's so difficult.
然后就会让人觉得有那么多东西要学，有那么多东西要记，太难了。
They told me that Krishna consciousness was simple.
他们都说Krishna知觉很简单呢。
they told me chant and be happy.
告诉我唱诵便快乐啊。
But now they're telling me I have to do all of these different things.
现在怎么告诉我要做这么多，要遵守这么多的规范原则？
I have to have this bag and my finger has to stick out of a hole.
还要让我把这个手，就是放进一个念珠袋里，然后还要把一个手指要露出来。
And I can only use these 2 fingers.
还有这2个手指。
And so on and so on and so on.
等等。
So sometimes it's overwhelming for people.
有时候，刚刚接触的朋友听到这些是受不了的。
And so if we apply all the principles immediately, people will not be able to understand.
所以说，刚开始就施加所有这些原则的话，人们是接受不了的。
Prabhupada didn't do that in the beginning.
释迦牟尼刚开始也没有这么做，
He very gently and very gradually introduced.
他只是柔和的、循序渐进的、慢慢的来介绍的。
Yeah. So time, place, and circumstance.
所以他会看时间、地点以及对象还有情况。
We see in this quote something quite similar.
这段话也讲的是同样的意思。
I can read it. You can read it. Read this quote.
我们一起来读一下。
一个人必须考虑具体的时间、国家和方面与否。在印度方面的事情，或许在西方国家并不方便。如果一个人去传教，冒了所有风险，考虑时间和地点，在做崇拜的方式上或许会有些变化，但是根据经验，这是没有错的。
So, according to time, place, and circumstance, one may make adjustments in the presentation.
因此，一个人在呈现这个不是知觉的时候，可以根据时间、地点和知觉的情况做一些调整。
Due to cultural differences,
会考虑到当地的实际的文化背景。
some examples come to my mind right now.
我刚刚想到一个例子，
For example, when we first went to Hong Kong,
我们第一次去香港的时候，
and we were starting to prepare prasadam for our guests.
我们要开始为客人准备布沙达。
Well, what we knew is what we were taught, so it was more or less kind of Indian-style prasad.
因为我们一直学的是印式的布沙达，
And those early guests, they found this foreign to them.
刚开始来的客人都会觉得这个很陌生，是国外来的。
So although it was well prepared according to, the standards of Indian cuisine, and quite acceptable and even tasty to us, it was kind of repulsive to them.
虽然说我们按照印度的风味来做这个布沙达，我们都觉得很好，但是客人却很反感。
Like halava,
比如说哈勒巴
sweet rice,
或者甜奶饭
gulab jamuns,
gulab jamun，
subjis with curd, paneer,
或者是奶酪。
all of these things which, most devotees around the world are accustomed to taking at a very typical Sunday feast.
那这是全世界的奉献者都习惯荣耀的这几样，尤其是在周日大餐的时候。
But here it was foreign.
但这时候对于这些新来的客人却觉得很陌生。
And we found that people left a lot on their plates.
我们也发现人们剩下的很多，
It was a struggle for them to eat it.
要让他们把它全吃完，简直是一个挣扎。
So we learned early on that we had to adjust the recipes, the actual cuisine, to make it more of a Chinese style that would be more acceptable.
所以我们就吸取了教训，对于这个饮食做了一些调整，要把它调整到适合中国人的口味。
And what did we find?
那我们发现了什么？
That as soon as we introduced this, the plates were empty.
我们加入了中国风味，做了中国风味的沙朗之后，每次人们都会吃光。
They were relishing the prasad.
他们非常的享受。
So sometimes these things have to be adjusted.
所以说，这些细节有时候是可以调整的。
But one has to, as Prabhupada will tell us now, one has to have the intelligence to understand how to adjust.
但怎样去调整？是他们说了，是 是需要一些智性的。
Prabhupada, how can we tell the difference between making an adjustment and changing a principle? Prabhupada closed his eyes, and I continued to rub his body. Finally, he opened his eyes and responded, "That requires a little intelligence."
这又是 Giridhari 问的一个问题。他说 ：“Prabhupada，我们如何区分做调整和改原则？”他大概闭着眼睛，我继续按摩他的身体。最后，他睁开眼睛，回答道：“这需要一点智慧。”
So the context of this, again, this is the same visit that Prabhupada had in Manila.
这也是同样是在释迦牟尼的拜访马尼拉的时候说的。
Shruti Kidra, again, he's giving Prabhupada his oil massage in the morning.
同样是释迦牟尼帕布在清晨对释迦牟尼的按摩。
And Prabhupada started to speak. He said, my godbrothers criticize me that I have allowed women to live in our temples.
释迦牟尼说，我的神兄弟都批评我说，我居然允许女性居住在庙里。
This is not done in India.
印度可不这么做。
But I have become successful because I have made this adjustment.
但我的成功就是因为我做了这些调整。
Prabhupada became quiet.
释迦牟尼又安心下来。
Shruti Kirti asked,
释迦牟尼问道
"How can we tell the difference?"
怎样区分呢？
And then Prabhupada said,
于是释迦牟尼就说了这句话，
requires a bit of
是
intelligence.
需要智慧的。
So this is something that we understand, and I'll explain how we understand it.
所以我们是应该以这样的方式来理解。
Similar thing that Burijan Prabhu reports,
Giridhari 帕布也回忆了同样的事情。
that in his dealings with Prabhupada, he came to understand that if one foolishly mistakes a non-adjustable principle for an adjustable detail, it can create havoc.
是的，Giridhari 帕布意识到说，愚蠢的将一个不可调整的原则当做可以调整的细节，就会造成灵性生活中的混乱。
But at the same time, to accept a adjustable detail that can never be adjusted is fanaticism.
但是如果认为某一个细节是永远不可调整的，就是狂热。
So you can create havoc either side.
所以说，我们容易走某一个极端。
Okay, we're going to read one more quote from the Adi Lila.
我们再从永恒的主场面其上篇烧耳当中来读一段，
Bola, bola, bola,
一
bola.
起来读一下。So Prabhupada, the founder Acharya, he adjusted the details in ways that were suitable according to time, place, and circumstance. 因为释迦牟尼是创办灵性导师，所以他根据时间、地点和具体的情形，对于细节做了一些调整，让更多的人容易接受。Again, he did it very gradually. 当然，他也说了要逐步的引入。Even the etiquettes of address, not dress, address. Just like in the beginning, they called him Swamiji, and it took a long time before they could evolve to addressing him properly according to his position as Prabhupada. 就比如在称呼的礼仪上，刚开始有很长的时间，他就接受门徒称他为 Swami 之后才因为有必要强调和明细他的实际的位置，才改称呼为 Prabhupada. They really didn't understand any etiquette of how to deal with him. It said that Prabhupada had to wait in line to take a shower in the morning along with everybody else. 而且刚开始的时候，他们也不懂与 Prabhupada 与 灵性导师交往的礼仪，甚至在清晨沐浴的时候，还要让帕布帕的也会排队。
Now we're Shri Guru Charana Padma. But here Prabhupada's in line, is waiting to take a shower, with a towel over his shoulder.
现在我们清晨要做的是，我们在唱灵诗颂歌赞美荣耀帕布帕的，但当时是要帕布帕是拿着浴巾搭在肩上，站在长长队伍里面等待着去沐浴。
He cooked for the devotees.
他亲自去为奉献者们做饭。
He ended up serving them.
还亲自给他们派饭。
And then when they ate so much that they either went to sleep or left, Prabhupada often had to clean up the mess afterwards.
那所有人吃完之后，要么离开了，要么回去睡觉了。只有圣帕帕的留下来清洗这个锅碗瓢盆。
So Prabhupada was prepared. Why? Because he was ready to do the needful, as he said, to do the needful for Krishna.
是因为释迦帕帕随时准备着为 Krishna 做一切必要做的事情。
So we're going to kind of focus in on how to discern the principles from the details.
接下来我们看怎样区分细节和原则。
And that's done in the company of like-minded Vaishnavas.
最好是和志趣相投的奉献者一起来做。
Skip is a group task, okay? Skip the group task, okay? Okay? So, what does this mean?
这是什么意思呢？
We associate with those who are serious
与真诚的、认真的人联谊，
and those that we can cooperate with.
可以一起合作的人联谊，
And even those that we can't cooperate with.
甚至无法合作的也要联谊。
As long as the same common unifying principle is in the center.
只要把共同的原则和目标放在中心。
Now study these photos.
我们看一下这几个照片。
On the left is Srila Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis.
左边是Srila Rupa和Sanatana Goswami。
Now, it's not difficult to understand that they were like-minded.
那这样很容易理解，他们当然是志趣相投的了。
That they were both situated on the highest level of pure love for
因
Krishna.
为他们都处在对 Krishna 的纯粹奉爱的阶段。
Having their spiritual forms as manjaris.
他们有灵性的躯体是 Manjari，
But still they were different.
但他们也有差异，
And still there was some disagreement.
也有一些分歧。
But they reconciled around the common principle.
但因基于共同的原则，他们的分歧却能得以调和。
Now in the other photo, we have the ashram devotees.
右边的这个照片当中，我们看到有ashram庙宇住的奉献者，
And who sticks out like a sore thumb in the midst of them all is George Harrison.
而站在他中间更是一脸突出的就是 Giridhari，
Probably one of the most famous musicians that ever lived.
是他们称他为是有史以来最著名的音乐家。
So he's obviously not an ashram devotee.
他显然不是一个住在庙里面的奉献者。
But he had the same level of faith in Prabhupada and the strong desire to give to the world what Prabhupada gave him.
但是他却和奉献者一样，对于释迦帕帕的有同样的信心，也有同样强烈的愿望，要把释迦帕帕给予他的，给予世人。
And while the ashram devotees were doing service in a temple, going out and distributing books, going on Harinam and all the rest, he was out there touring the world and singing, music about Krishna.
庙宇里面奉献者在庙里面做服务，也出去派书出去做哈利浪，而 George Harrison 却以他的方式，在向世人传扬 Krishna 的讯息。
At one point, he asked Prabhupada, should I move into the ashram?
有一次，他也问过释迦帕帕，我要不要搬到庙里来住呢？
And Prabhupada said, no.
释迦帕帕说不要，
Your service is more important.
你在外面的服务更重要。
You make music for Krishna.
因为 Krishna 作曲，
and you go and sing, and you bring millions of people to the lotus feet of Krishna.
你继续去唱歌，把百万的民众，把百万的人群带到krishna的莲花足上。
And he took that instruction to heart.
他也的确把这个训示听到心里去了。
And if you'll check with many of the older devotees, their first contact with Krishna consciousness was through his music.
我们慢慢看最早期的一些奉献者，都会发现，大部分人接触krishna之举都是因为 Giridhari 的音乐。
Particularly in the late 60s, early 70s.
尤其是在60年代末、70年代初，
He allowed millions of people to hear the holy name.
他让百万个人都听到了 krishna 的圣名，
Kind of uncountable, really.
而能听到通过他的歌曲听到 krishna 圣名的人是不计其数的。
And as the nature of that kind of very popular music, it gets replayed, and so more and more generations are hearing Krishna's name being chanted.
因为他的这首歌曲非常的流行，然后连续好几代的人都反复在听他这首歌。
Whether it's consciously or unconsciously, they're hearing the holy name.
人们通过听他的歌，有意无意中都在聆听圣名。
So they all got along because the same common principle was binding them together.
他们之所以能够很好的相处，就是因为有共同的原则，把他们这个纽带把他们连接起来了。
So like-minded Vaishnavas are able to find unity amid their diversity.
志趣相投的Vaishnava能够求同存异，互相合作，角逐。
Prabhupada said something very heavy.
他说了一些很重的话。
This quote is perhaps one of the heaviest in the whole Bhagavatam.
这段话可以算是圣典国家法坛当中很重的、最重的、分量最重的一段话。
Anyone who is trying to be aloof from this Krishna consciousness society and yet engage in Krishna consciousness is living in a great hallucination. For this is not possible. Unless one is associated with devotees, his devotional service does not mature, it does not become distinct from material activities.
我们一起来读一下。
So sometimes we have this wild notion
有时候我们会有一个疯狂的概念观念，
that we can be aloof from the society of devotees and somehow make advancement.
我们觉得我们可以超脱于或者远离于奉献者社团，却依然取得灵性进步。
But according to Prabhupada's statement,
但看释迦帕巴在这里说的，
this is an hallucination.
这是巨大的幻觉。
Because our main principle is Vaishnava Sangha.
因为我们的主要原则就是来释迦的三大宝。
We have to get it somewhere.
必须从某一些地方得到奉献的联谊。
You can't just associate with yourself.
不能只和自己联谊。
I'm a very nice Vaishnava.
我是个非常精进的来释迦奉献者。
I'll associate with you. Nice to meet you. I'll associate with
我要
you.
和你联谊，我很高兴见到你。
It takes two to associate,
所以说这是不可能的，要联谊必然涉及到两个
and
人，
preferably more.
当然越多越好，
But you have to have some Sangha
必须有一些三个，有一些联谊。
where you chant together, where you hear about Krishna together,
联谊就意味着一起唱诵，一起聆听有关归山的题旨，
where you honor prasadam,
荣耀不杀党，
where you discuss,
一起来讨论、
where you share.
分享，
That is required.
这是必要的，
It's not an option.
并不是可有可无的，
It's a necessity.
是必不可少的。
Otherwise, advancement will be negligible.
否则的话，进步就微乎其微。
Prabhupada makes it very clear.
老板说得很清楚，
So we should seek the association of devotees who are serious,
所以我们要寻求认真的奉献者的联谊，
who are sincere,
真诚的奉献者的联谊，
who are reasonable
或者是理性的奉献者，
and spiritually intelligent.
有灵性智慧的奉献者。
And there's always going to be someone or some group that will fit this description.
总有人或者总有一些团体，他们是符合这些标准的，适合我们学艺的。
Now, an important point of all of this is humility.
所有的这些品质当中，最重要的就是谦卑。
Because without humility, it's very hard to associate with the Vaishnavas.
因为没有谦卑的话，是很难和外师那奉献者联谊的。
We see here that Mahaprabhu is instructing Srila Sanatana Goswami.
这幅图上我们看到马哈帕布在训示 Sanatana Goswami。
And although he knows that Mahaprabhu, Sanatana Goswami certainly possesses tremendous knowledge and understanding.
当然 Sanatana Goswami 已经有了大量的知识了。
But he says here, it's the nature of a sadhu to inquire, to confirm.
但是他说，圣人萨度的天性喜欢询问，喜欢去确认。
And he notes he does so for the sake of strictness.
他这样做是为了严谨。
Strictness in never presuming that he knows everything.
严谨也就是他不会认为自己已经知道一切。
Strict in remembering his absolute tininess. Strict in remembering his tininess.
他会明白这个细微的差别，所以非常的严谨。
A saintly person is always glad to hear deeper and deeper realizations from serious devotees.
一个真诚的奉献者，他也总是愿意去从更真诚、更精密的奉献里寻一更深刻的觉悟。
Whatever their stage of advancement may be.
无论他们处在多么高的觉悟的层面。
We see Prabhupada was like that.
释迦牟尼就是这样的。
That he truly enjoyed being in the company of his disciples.
他甚至非常的喜欢和他的门徒们在一起。
Now there couldn't have been any farther distance between them in spiritual advancement. Prabhupada was, we can't even fathom how high he was. And his disciples, by comparison, they were just neophytes. They were new devotees who had just become devotees. But still, Prabhupada enjoyed the Sangha.
我们看释迦牟尼和他的门徒之间，这种差异可以说再大不过了。在灵性，就从灵性的层面来说，释迦牟尼他灵性的层面高的我们都无法触及、无法度量，而这些门徒也只不过是刚刚修习的初级奉献者。
So although Prabhupada didn't write a purport to this verse,
但他依然会想受他的门徒的陪伴和联谊。我们看一下这个事情。
later he spoke about it.
后来他也说到，
So you can read and we'll play.
我们来读屏幕上的话，再听录音。
Second slide. So if we study our predecessor acharyas, even those who are as exalted as the 6 Goswamis, they were always consultative.
我们去研究一下的话，你会发现，即便精进如6个Swami的人，他们也是会咨询 更高级的奉献品的。
They never thought they were an island unto themselves.
他们并不是孤身一人处在一个孤岛上，
They never thought that they knew everything,
但从来没觉得自己已经知晓一切。
even though they were so learned
虽然说他们已经极其博学了，
and so skilled.
也是那么的有经验。
But as I mentioned earlier, the 6 Goswamis, they would regularly meet.
之前我们也谈到，6个 Swami 他们也会定期会面，
And it wasn't just to discuss very esoteric spiritual topics.
他们在一起讨论的并不是极其艰深的难懂的灵性的题旨，
But each of them would ask the others, what do you see in me that can be improved?
而是互相问对方，你有没有看到我身上还有可以改善的地方？
What faults do you see in me?
你看到我身上还有什么错误？
How can I improve my service?
我怎么样能够改善我的服务？
They genuinely, they wanted to know
他们都很真心的想知道怎样去改善，
because they wanted to become closer to Krishna.
因为他们想更接近 Krishna，
They were completely free of false ego.
他们是完全摆脱了假我的，
The false ego works against us.
因为是假我在和我们对抗。
I know.
我知道了，
My father used to tell me,
我父亲曾经跟我
because
说，
when I was a young boy,
我还是个小孩的时候，
my mantra to him was,
我跟他经常说的一个口头禅就是
I know.
我知道。
He would try to tell me something, I said, I know.
他每次跟我说为什么的时候，我说我知道。
Something more, I know.
他再说什么，我还说我知道。
And one day he looked at me.
有一天他就这样看着我，
He said, you know everything.
他说你好像无所不知。
But what I learned later is I didn't know anything.
后来我才发现，其实我一无所知，
And the things that he told me
而他告诉我的那些事情
were very true.
都是非常真的、非常对的。
And had I listened,
如果我听了的话，
I would have avoided a lot of unnecessary problems.
我就能避免很多不必要的麻烦。
So sometimes we have that demon in our mind that tells us, I know.
所以有时候我们内心里面就会有这样的恶魔的声音，说我知道，
That's good
但这也是好的。
if we add some more words.
如果再加一些词的话，就是好的。
Actually, just one more word.
其实再多加一个词就够了。
I know
我知道，
nothing.
知道
That is a very good mantra.
那这个其实是很好的一个座右铭。
I know nothing.
我什么都不知道，
That's very helpful.
这一点这就很有用了。
Then we can be very consultative. We can ask sincerely, how can I improve?
只有当我们总觉得自己什么都不知道的时候，我们才能真诚地向别人寻求咨询、寻求帮助、改善。
How can I advance?
我怎样我进步？
So humility is very key to finding unity and diversity.
所以要在差异性当中找到一致性，最关键的就是谦卑。
It's very key, it's essential to also finding cooperation and harmony.
要找到团结，找到和谐，最关键的也是谦卑。
Okay, I'm going to finish with just one quotation. I will read this.
我再读一段就结束。
And this is from a room conversation Prabhupada had in 1976 in Mayapur.
1976年时候，他在玛雅坡的一次房间谈话当中讲到的。
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God himself, Krishna himself.
主Chaitanya Mahaprabhu是 Krishna 本人。
You listening? Did you listen? Did you get it or not? I will repeat it. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is God himself,
主Chaitanya是神本人，
Krishna himself.
是 Krishna 本人。
He felt alone, unable to do this task.
他觉得自己孤身一人无法完成这个使命。
He felt this.
他感受到这一点，
So this is the position.
这就是他的位置。
You are cooperating, therefore I am getting the credit.
因为你们合作，所以我才得享这个功劳。
Otherwise,
否则的话，
alone, what could I do?
凭我一个人能做
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself wanted our cooperation.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 本人也希望我们合作。
He is God, Krishna.
他是神，是 Krishna，
And therefore cooperation is a very important thing.
所以合作是很重要的一件事。
No one should think that I have got so great ability I can do.
没有人能认为我有那么多的能力，我能做到。
No.
不是的，
It is simply by cooperation we can do very big things.
只是因为合作，我们才能有大作为。
United we stand, divided we fall.
合则两利，分则俱亡。
Sankirtan.
Sankirtan 齐颂，
Sankirtan means many men combined together chanting.
齐颂圣名 Sankirtan 意味着很多人一起来唱诵，
That is Sankirtana.
这才是 Sankirtan。
Otherwise, kirtan.
否则的话是 Kirtan。
Sankirtan means many combined together.
Sankirtan 的意思是尽可能多的人合力一起来唱诵，
That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission.
这才是Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 的使命。
Yeah. So I'm going to leave you with that quote.
我们就到这来有没有人读一下这段话？
And these, I'm not sure we need to go through this. I think it's very clear, it should be very clear to everybody why love means to cooperate. Prabhupada made it quite clear.
为什么爱意味着在万福中合作？是他的讲得很清楚。
He also explained why serving Krishna is not utopia.
他讲了为什么服 Krishna 不是乌托邦？
He explained clearly how to find unity and diversity.
他也很清楚的解释了如何在多样性中找到一致性。
He explained how to seek out and associate with like-minded devotees.
他讲到如何去与志趣相投的奉献者联谊。
And he described the quality that enables us to do that.
他说也讲到什么样的品质才能够让我们得到奉献者的联谊。
Trinadapi sunichena torodapi suhishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. That one should be more lower than the grass, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respect to others, then one can always chant the holy name of the Lord, constantly.
就像主的那需要什么样的品质呢？就像主的八圣规中第3条所说的，我们一起来背一下。
Yes, many of us have memorized it.
我们大部分奉献者都背下这一条了，
But application is often lacking.
但缺的就是运用。
So we're not meant to just memorize verses.
所以我们目的并不是只是背诗节，
We're meant to use them as the guiding principles in our life.
目的是把它当做生活的指导原则。
Otherwise, they're just words.
否则的话，只不过是只空言，
All sounds very nice.
可能就听上去好听，
Sounds very spiritual.
听上去也很灵性。
But unless until we apply it, they'll remain like that. Just an idea.
除非我们去运用的话，否则的话，这些只是一个概念。
Okay. So I think we'll end here. It's 15 to 1.
已经12点45了，所以我们就到这里结束。
And we can reassemble at 3 p.m.
下午3点我们再继续。
Now, if we can finish early,
如果能够早结束的话，
we may show a movie. Now, if it doesn't happen today, it'll happen tomorrow.
我们会如果能够早结束的话，今天我们会一起看一个电影。
Yeah, this is The Joy of Devotion,
这个名字叫做《奉爱的喜悦》，
which speaks about Prabhupada's journey and what he accomplished through his devotees over the last 50 years.
讲到施拉帕帕的传教旅程，以及他所取得的成就，以及过去 50年他的门徒，在他的训示上取得的成就，
Very inspiring.
非常的鼓舞人心。
Any devotee who has seen this has been very inspired by it.
看过这个影片的奉献者都极受鼓舞，
Because it makes us kind of look into ourselves and see what is it that we can do to contribute to Prabhupada's movement.
因为看到这个影片的时候，我们就不禁会去想，我们自己能够做些什么来，为释迦帕帕的使命做出贡献。
Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Continuing now, our seminar, of course,